Hail to legal warriors. Have you ever heard of the term the legal limit when it comes to DUIs? And we all know 0.08. Well, I think they have the term all wrong. I don't think it's the legal limit. I think we should call it the illegal limit. And it's really important you understand the concepts in this video if you're going to help protect yourself from a DUI. If you're interested in this area of law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Lynnwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington state for more than 20 years. I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get the help they need. Now I'm just going to jump right into it. This just occurred to me last week. I was speaking to a potential new client who blew under 0.08. And it took a couple years for the state to charge this person. And even though they blew under the legal limit, they still got charged with a DUI. And they were very confused about why. And I've done this job for 30 years. And I know that the police and prosecutors charge people under a 0.08 all the time. 0.07, 0.06. I've seen 0.02 get charged with DUI. Well, I was talking to that very distraught person. I said, it just occurred to me, it's really not the legal limit. It should be called the illegal limit. And let me talk about why. So when we call 0.08 the legal limit, what people say is, hey, I'm legal to drive if I'm under a 0.08, because that's what we think, right? Hey, I'm under the legal limit, so I'm good to drive, right? Wrong. The Washington State DUI statute, 46.61.500, describes DUI and defines it as you're automatically per se guilty if you have a breath test of 0.08 or higher within 2 hours of driving for alcohol consumed before or during driving, or you're also guilty if you are affected by or under the influence of alcohol or any other drug. And under the influence is basically defined as your ability to drive affected in any appreciable degree. That's a very broad definition, right? So when we're 0.08, then we're automatically provable to be guilty under the per se 0.08 or higher, you're guilty. But if we're under 0.08, the legal limit, it doesn't mean we're legal to drive. So I think we should really think about as 0.08 as the illegal limit. Once we hit 0.08, we're automatically illegal if that breath test machine operated correctly or the blood draw. Doesn't mean we'll be found guilty because hopefully your attorney's going to negotiate and find some defenses. But that's the illegal limit. If we're under it, it does not clear us, okay? It does not clear us. We are not safe to drive if we're 07 or 06 or 05. And I've got 30 years of experience, 7 years prosecuting, to prove it. And so what do I want you to know about how they can try to prove us guilty even if we're under the illegal limit of 0.08? And I'm not talking about marijuana, but it's the same idea. 5 nanograms for marijuana. And if we happen to be a minor, our limit's 0.02. We happen to be driving a commercial vehicle with a commercial license, it's 0.04. But let's just talk about the standard situation, 0.08. So we're under the illegal limit, or they don't have a breath test, or we've got zero alcohol in our system. How do they prove us guilty of DUI? Where there are several different ways about how they can do it. So let's take situation one. Situation one could be where you have blown 0.06 or 0.05, something under 0.08, and there is a time where it's like more than 2 hours after the stop, okay? It's 3 hours later, you blow up 0.07. There's something wrong with the breath test machine. It takes a while to get a tow, something like that. Well, they could try to extrapolate backwards to try to show that your breath test would have been higher at a time when it was within 2 hours of driving, because the state makes an assumption that people's numbers are always going down. So if you blew 07, 3 hours after driving, you must have been 09, 2 hours after driving, because they think we're always eliminating alcohol from our system. And they use something called Widmark's formula, or they try to estimate what someone's breath would have been at a point earlier in time. And the defense to that is it's just bogus, right? Because it depends on when we drank our alcohol, how much we drank, and mainly how much we ate, because we have something called a pyloric valve in our stomach that keeps our stomach contents from getting into our intestines if there's food in our stomach. And about 80% of alcohol that hits our bloodstream gets absorbed through the small intestines, not through the stomach lining. And so, believe it or not, if you've had a bunch of food and a bunch of high-test alcohol, it takes a while for that food to digest, and so that valve is shut. And so it's just barely seeping through the stomach lining, and so you're barely going up. And usually in that situation, we're drinking more hard alcohol because, hey, I don't feel anything. Maybe they're not making them this strong. And that's because that food's on our stomach, that there's maybe fat in the stomach, so it's even getting less through. We drink more. We go out driving, it's 2 or 3 hours after the fact, then all of a sudden, unbeknownst to us, the food is done digesting, the valve opens, and now there's this freight train of high-test alcohol that hits our intestines, and all of a sudden we're hammered, okay? We go way, way up as far as our numbers, even though, it's been a long time since we drank anything. And those are the cases that are easily detectable by someone with a lot of experience in this type of work, because they'll say, I was fine, and all of a sudden I was just, I wasn't fine. And, that's happened to me before. Luckily not when I was driving. I remember a situation where I had a large meal, and I went out and had some drinks afterwards. I thought, man, these people are making this very strong. And I was totally fine, but by the end of the night, I was having a hard time walking because that situation hit me, where I drank more than I thought. So Widmark's formula is one way they can try to prove us guilty by extrapolating backwards about supposedly what our breath test would have been earlier. What else can they do? Well, they can also claim that there are other things that are affecting our ability to drive, right? They could claim prescription medication, right? Most of us think, hey, if I'm taking my prescribed medications, that can't make me guilty of a DUI. Wrong. Prescribed medications often will make us guilty of a DUI because a prescription is not a defense, right? We can't go take our Ambien and then drive an hour later, pass out and say, well, hey, I'm prescribed Ambien. I wasn't affected by the medication I took. No, that's a DUI, right? And so we have to be very careful about what we tell police officers that we're on for medication if we're getting pulled over. Oxycodone, muscle relaxers are a big, big problem. Lots of things can affect our ability to drive, especially if they're mixed with a little bit of alcohol. So that can be pretty bad. So prescribed medications. What's another thing that they can try to show that we're affected, our ability to drive is affected by what else? Well, other types of drugs, right? Marijuana is one I already mentioned. There's a per se limit for marijuana, 5 nanograms in a blood draw. But even a little bit can be enough if they have other evidence, right? So other drugs can be something they can still try to use, even if we have no alcohol in our system at all. What are some weird cases I've seen? I've seen DUIs where people were doing whippets, right? They were, sucking out the gas from, the nitrous type stuff from a, what do they call it? Whipped cream can, right? Whippets. And so, that can make someone pass out. And even though you're not on alcohol and you're not on any type of normal prescribed medication, that can happen where people are using unusual things. What's another situation? Well, they can just say that, hey, even though you blew an 06, that's a high number for you because your driving was so bad. Or they can use those field sobriety tests to try to prove us guilty. This is why, at least in Washington State, if I was asked to do a field sobriety test, I wouldn't do one, right? Because they're subjective and they're impossible to pass, in my opinion, because they're subjective the way that they're scored. And they purport to say that if you do bad in those cases, you must be affected and your ability to drive must be affected. So all you're doing, you're not clearing yourself if you do field sobriety tests well. Good luck doing them well. You're just building their case. So if you're under that illegal limit, they can still prove you guilty because your field sobriety tests were so terrible, even though you didn't really hear them, even though you were nervous, even though you were cold, it was dark, it was rainy. All these reasons that you are being believed to have failed a test, that you don't know how it's scored, that you've never practiced, they don't even instruct right most of the time. That's why you don't need to do them. So the main thing I want you to know is I want you to be careful, right? There is no amount of alcohol where it's safe to drive, okay? It's just a fact. If there's alcohol in your breath, there's a good chance you're going to get a DUI. And I'm sure lots of people will comment about, hey, I got pulled over and I got away with it, or you don't know what you're talking about, lawyer, because there's a lot of armchair lawyers out there, right, who have no experience and really don't know anything. It's my job on this channel to educate you and hopefully make you be safe, so you'll never need to hire a law firm to defend you for a DUI, even if you felt fine, even if you're under the illegal limit of 0.08. So please be careful. And if you find this video useful, please like and please subscribe. More people will get to see it. And more importantly, if you have a legal problem in Washington State and DUI or anything else that's criminal, feel free to give my office a call. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.